fight in downtown Springfield earlier this month is getting the attention of city leaders, with the bar's license under review. Now city leaders say they're outraged that the incident escalated as much as it did. Western Mass News reporter Maria Wilson joining us in studio with that story. Maria?
Chris, that brawl, which took place both inside and outside of the bar, ended with one person injured and gunshots exchanged during the city's License Commission meeting last night. City officials say that they're going to investigate this incident so that something similar doesn't happen again.
It's amazing that someone didn't get killed. Absolutely amazing, with all those bullets flying everywhere.
Springfield License Commission investigating a significant bar fight from earlier this month.
It's bad. It's not good for the city. It's not good for the other businesses down there. They're just trying to, make a living.
It was around 9 o'clock on September 3rd when Springfield Police responded to the Souk Hookah Lounge for reports of a large fight. When they arrived at the Worthington Street bar, they found a hectic scene with fights happening both inside and outside of the bar, leaving one person injured after getting hit in the head with a bottle. According to the Springfield Police Department, a fight grew in size and quickly spilled outside of the establishment.
There was two groups that were pretty clearly involved with fighting each other inside and again outside. Once the officers arrived, there was an issue outside where gunfire was exchanged between the two groups that were fighting. So inside it became problematic fairly quickly.
City leaders say restaurant staff should have involved police sooner.
I feel like if someone had called at the first sign of trouble, there would have been a different outcome. And, thank God no one was seriously injured.
And while city leaders are grateful the ordeal didn't have a different ending, it's raising questions about the bar's security measures.
Lack of cooperation with the police department, too, is very concerning.
Astounding.
Chairman of the city's Public Safety Committee also weighing in.
Another senseless shooting that we must address. It's unnecessary and it's unfortunate.
Now the License Commission says they'll look into the incident and review the bar's license.
This is quite a severe problem. So severe, I think we need to go directly to a final hearing on this and skip the pre-hearing conference.
Click Bruce telling us it's a start.
But it's a step in the right direction to hold accountable these establishments who are not properly obtaining or detaining these constituents that are going into their businesses.
And the city councilor says public safety must remain a top priority, especially in bars and other similar settings.
At the very least, you got to have security patting people down to make sure that the residents are safe in that establishment. So at the very least, that or if we need to get metal detectors, stuff of that nature, we got to take all measures to make sure everybody's safe.
In the end, city leaders voted unanimously to skip the pre-hearing and to proceed with the final hearing, which is scheduled for September 27th. Click Bruce tells me he's hoping that whatever the outcome of that hearing is, he hopes that it will deter people from incidences like this in the future. In studio, Maria Wilson, Western Mass News.